First thing I have to do is I have to take roll call for purposes of the minutes in the meeting, so I'm going to go right down. Right down the letterhead. John Swenson. Here?
Here.
All right. The sheriff is not here. Chief Doug Ebeltoft.
Present.
All right. Chief Brad Wise. I didn't hear it. Brad is not on. Okay. Let's go to Pat Antonin. Could you mute your mic, please, until you're ready to speak? So, Pat Antonin, did I get anything?
Yep, I'm here.
Good, thank you. Chief Lenny Austin?
Yep, I'm here, Tony.
Good, thank you. Commissioner Julie Brasted?
Here.
All right. Council member Tony, now, help me out. Is it Cavane or Cavane? How do you pronounce it, Tony?
Vane.
Cavane, thank you. He's obviously here.
I am.
Thank you. James Cohn, chief, is retired. He will be coming. Mayor Dan Deno, are you here, Mayor?
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Steve Feldman? Okay, haven't heard from Steve. Chief Jeff Caters?
Present.
Okay. Councilmember Jeff Menth?
I'm here.
Good. Spring Lake Park Mayor Robert Nelson? I don't hear that. Okay. Dave Oswald, member at large?
I'm here.
Thank you. Eric Peterson, chief?
Present.
Thank you. Brian Podani, chief in Blaine?
Tony Dan Sokolsky, proxy for Brian today.
Okay, thank you, Ski. Mayor Tom Ryan is here. Okay, how about Mayor Donna Schmidt? Okay. Commissioner Scott Schulte.
Present.
All right. St. Francis Police Chief Todd Schweiger.
Present.
Thank you. Andover Mayor Julie Trude. Yep, I can see you, Julie. Director of Public Safety in Fridley, Mr. Brian Weirkey is here.
Here.
All right. Councilmember Steve Wells from Coon Rapids.
Here.
Thank you. And Brian Wesp, council member from Anoka, is on the telephone, correct?
Here. Yep, I'm here.
Good. All right. And Charlie Thompson, our Columbia Heights Fire Chief, the fire representative, will not be here, according to Chief Austin. Is that correct? Okay. Very good. So we do have a quorum, which is very important because we're going to be talking about the budget today and passing a budget. So number one's done on the agenda. Number two is the approval of minutes. Usually I just, declare those to stand as typed if there are no corrections, but since we're doing this virtually, I guess I want to make sure that everybody's in agreement with that. And so I would ask for a motion to approve the minutes from the April 29th, 2020 meeting. Anyone make a motion?
Tony, this is John Swenson, Lionel Lakes. Make that motion.
Chief John Swenson makes the motion. Is there a second?
Schulte, second.
Commissioner Schulte, second. Okay, any discussion? Hearing none. The polling should be up on your screens. So those that are in favor, please indicate by voting.
West, both sides.
All right. Okay, I've got enough then. The motion is approved. I see Mayor Donna Schmidt has joined, correct, Mayor?
Correct.
Okay, very good. All right. Item number 3 is the treasurer's report. It is known as attachment B in your packet. And at this time, the sheriff usually gives that, but I believe Mr. Corey Camp from the county, who's our finance director, will be talking about Attachment B, the budget. If you would, Corey, please.
Yeah, Tony, can you guys hear me all right?
Yes, and before I continue, Corey, I should ask, please, for purposes of the minutes, if there is anybody else that is attending this meeting that is not actually on the Joint Law Enforcement Council but is attending. I know George is here, and I see Jason is here. Is Britta here also?
Yes, Britta's here.
Okay, very good. Let me just go down the list then, maybe it's easier. Kathy, Tim, are you present?
Yes.
Thank you. I know Corey is here. Val Sprincenatic, you are on the meeting also?
Yes, I'm here.
Very good. Terry Stoltzman, are you here? Nope. I don't hear from Terry. Dee Goodman, are you also on? Dee, are you on?
Yep.
Okay. Haven't heard from her. All right. All right, you're on. Very good. County Administrator Rhonda Silveraja, are you on, Rhonda? Okay, I haven't heard from him. All right, Kevin Helwig from the Sheriff's Office, are you on?
Yes, I'm here, Tony.
Good, thank you. Andy Knotts? Apparently not. Paul Lensmeyer? All right, O'Brien first.
I think I'm the only one from the sheriff's office today.
Okay, then, I take it Paul Summers not on either. All right, that's for purposes of the roll. Doreen, I hope you've gotten all that, purposes of the minutes. Okay, let's go back to Corey, attachment B, if you would, Corey, please.
All right, thanks, Tony. Good afternoon, everyone. Attachment B is the kind of updated treasury report in light of the sheriff. Just a very quick going through that. All the revenue for the year has been received, and that is normally what happens in the first half of the year. We usually get all the dues in, so we are full there. As we move to expenditures, we're running a little above budget at the end of June when it comes to administrative support. I think some of that will straighten out and we'll be fairly close on budget as we proceed through the year. We're at 276,000. No, actually, we're running, I'm looking at that wrong. We've actually only spent 111,000. So we're actually running below, we're running just fine on budget. So we will come under budget slightly on that one. 276,000 remains. 388,000 is the total budget under administrative support. Under system and maintenance support, 1.193 was budgeted. We've expended 783,000. We have 36% remaining, and this is mainly because the Tritech support, which is the Central Square now, is paid up front at the beginning of the year, so that's why you see that number go up. Everything else is coming in. We're tracking a little bit under budget at this point, so nothing alarming there. So overall, we've used 42.83% of the budget to date, so we are coming in a little bit under budget totally. 549,000 is our, 933,000 is what we've spent to date of 1.6. We have 699,000 to go, so we are doing fine on budget. So, any questions on the Treasurer's report?
Are there any questions of Corey? Anyone? Corey, it looks like we're projected to be 150,000 under. Is that correct?
Well, right now, we're only halfway through the year. I think we'll be under, but not quite that far under.
Okay.
So,
All right, questions on anyone? All right, this time then I would entertain a motion to approve attachment B, which is this year's treasurer's report.
Mayor Trude, motion to approve.
Mayor Trude, motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second by Commissioner Brasted.
Second by Commissioner Brasted. Any discussion, anyone? Hearing none, please vote then.
Tony, can you hear me, Tony?
Yes? Who's that?
Mayor Feldman from St. Francis.
Okay. Good, you just joined us, right?
Yeah, yes, I just joined. I was having some technical issues.
All right, don't we all? Thanks for joining us, Steve. We're just voting
Thank
on
you.
attachment B, which is this year's budget. Okay. And Mayor, the previous motion was approve the minutes. This is the second motion to approve the this year's budget. Okay. Okay, just a reminder to please mute your microphone unless you're speaking. That'll take care of any of the home repair going on. Thank you. Okay, all right, shall we move? Okay, that motion does pass. Item number 4 is the proposed budget. Once again, I'm going to ask Corey Camp to go through this. This is attachment C in your packets. So if we could.
Oh,
All right, go ahead.
Hello?
Corey, why don't you go ahead and start? And this is, of course, the lifeblood.
all right. Can everybody hear me all right?
Again, a reminder to please mute your microphones unless you are speaking. Mayor Feldman?
Mayor Feldman,
Yep, you
mute.
might want to mute your microphone, please. Okay.
Okay, I think we're ready to go. Thank you,
Okay,
Tony.
go ahead, Corey.
All right, thanks everyone. This is the proposed 2021 budget for the Joint Law Enforcement Council. As we look at the first page that you have up there, there's no change to the super formula. We've had some slight changes in the major areas, but not that much. If you look at the law breakdown, there is some slight percentage changes in the law because they were updated for calls of services. If you recall, it averages the last 5 years. So it'll be from 2015 to 2019. Calls for service from 911 are used in coming up with that average, and that determines the percentage of breakdown on the law side of the equation. So our goal has been to maintain a reserve balance that is equal to 20% of expenditures. That has not changed. During the 2020 budget process, if you recall, we had a large discussion about our dues revenue and where everything was at. We also talked about our overall fund balance, and we had come up with a plan during 2020 where we were looking at a potential 7.5% dues increase each year through 2023 to balance it, and that's where we had landed last year. So, keeping that in mind as we went into this year, the positive things are 2019 came in better than expected by 72,000, which reduced our needed usage from 107 to 35 and gave us more reserves to help us get through the next 3-4 years and still maintain a 20% balance. So we had 721,000 in reserves, or 50% of our 2019 expenditures. So 2020, we are expecting to use 150,000. I think we will come in a little less this year. Not for certain, since being only halfway through the year, we're not for certain, but I'm sure we'll be a little bit under budget.
Now, that's out of the reserve, right, Corey?
What's that?
You said we're going to use 150,000. That's out of our budgeted reserves, correct?
Correct. So we will still use reserves, but I think we'll use less than the 150,000. So we'll be somewhere between, probably closer to 100,000 in reserve usage rather than the 150 anticipated. So that's something to keep in mind as you're looking at that. As we look at 2021, we are proposing a decrease of $4,000 or 0.26%. So it's a fairly flat budget. And this is accompanied by a dues increase of 2.46%. This is a lot less than the 7.5% that had been forecast last year. And if the board wanted to go to a flat dues, then that would reduce our reserves to 18% by 2024, which is under the 20% threshold that we as a board had the board had agreed upon. However, even reducing that to zero, would not flatten all of them. So if you move to page 2, where I'm going to talk about the operating expenditures, then I'm going to come back into the revenue and talk about where we left off there. First of all, for our operating expenses, we still have the 3 main categories: admin support, system maintenance, and then the initiatives. Under admin support, we are requesting an increase overall. The overall expenditures are going to decrease, but administrative support is a 13% increase because of adding FTE to the law RMS support, taking Britta's position and moving it full-time under the joint law enforcement. And the city of Coon Rapids has agreed to work with us in doing that. So that's about a overall $12,000 increase from where we had been. And so that's kind of what's driving this. We're also seeing a decrease in the system maintenance support of 4.63% due to some changes in software licensing costs from Laserfish and CAD contracts. So that has been one of the main drivers in helping maintain our budget down slightly. But the system maintenance does increase, and it does include an addition of $10,000 needed for the work on Browser 2.0 that George has talked about over the last couple of meetings. So other costs, we're assuming a 3% or just under 3%, and then a 3% expenditure forecast for 22 to 24 as we look out the next few years. So that's kind of what we're looking at for overall expenditures. So again, we're seeing a decrease this year, very slight, with a 3% anticipated up to 22 to 24 at this point. There's nothing indicating that would be changing. As we move into the dues, like we said, the 2.46% in overall dues versus the 7.5 we'd initially forecast last year will result in a shift. If you look at page 3 on the dues, you will see the law come in at 7.7%, fire 4.4. It's a decrease for central comm, and overall 2.46% rounded to 2.5%. Even if we brought this 2.5 down to 0, the law would still go up over 5%. So that's just because of the shift in costs, adding the position for Britta in, and those dynamic shifts are what is causing the increases, or kind of pushing those increases. So with that, is there any questions on the revenue side?
Okay, any questions for Corey on revenue? All right, hearing none, go ahead, Corey.
All right, finally, we look at the reserves. What is happening with our reserves? As you can see, our current plan drives our reserves down to 20.4% by 2024. This is, assuming we'll use about 150,000 in 2020. So again, this may open up so we do not have to increase the dues, because if you go back up to the revenue percent change just above the reserve graph on page 3 and look at that, we're expecting a 5.4, 6.2, and 4.5% increases in 22 to 24. If we come in under budget, that will probably impact the need to increase these as much as they are, unless some new initiatives come forward. So that's good news. That's our forecast. Again, a forecast isn't a reality, and we'll keep updating this as we get closer to those years, and as we go into the 2020 budget next January and start beginning to look at that. Equipment and projects, I just want to move quickly. We have the levy that the county provides to public safety levy, which is $1.75 million. Under law, the county sets the levy, and the JLEC is authorized to spend the levy on capital projects. We have 3 projects that are ongoing related to that. The PSDS system, which was initially $8 million, we are still paying back. The county is still being paid back gradually through 2023, when this levy is set to sunset, unless the board and county work with the legislature to make that change. The upgrade of the 911 radio tower system is also an ongoing project that's going to heat up this next year. That has to be done, I think, by the end of next year is the plan, and we've got about $2.7 million to be spent on that project, so you will see that moving forward with more speed. And that's all the radio equipment in the towers to allow for the communication, the radio communication, which goes out to the squads. Equipment replacement of the equipment. We just replaced the equipment like we finished it last year. And so as we get out to 22 and 23, we're probably going to have to replace equipment again. And so we have about 900,000 set aside as part of this account to pay for that coming up later by 22, 23, might even go into 24. So, and that's on page 4 right now. So where I'm at. And so in conclusion, we're looking at a 2.46% increase in dues overall. We have a slight decrease in our overall budget, about $4,000, with a projection of maybe about 5.4% for the next couple of years to maintain our system. Keep in mind, we are still lower than we were back in 17 for dues overall. So we're still on a fairly conservative trajectory for maintaining this system. So with that, the other pages 5 and on, are kind of the summary pages. Kind of look at that as your leisure if there's any questions on them. The financial position page on page 6 shows you kind of where we've been and where we might be going, assuming a 3%, and shows you at the bottom how we got to the reserves. So these are all the numbers behind the scenes. And if people have questions, and feel free to contact me afterwards, we can talk it through. Page 7 is just how we got to the spread among law, how the percentages changed by updating the calls for service based on the formula. Page 8 is just kind of an updated on the overall PSDS project, where that had landed. That's that 7.8 million where we are at, and there's a couple outstanding payments. So then page 9 just shows you what's happening with the public safety levy and the anticipated cash flow of that. This will be updated later this year, as we do every year. Any questions on the budget as a whole? If not, I'll let Tony offer that up for consideration.
Any preliminary questions of Corey at this point by anybody on this call? Okay. I'm not hearing any.
Sorry, Mayor Feldman, please.
Yes, go ahead, Mayor.
One question, and I talked to Corey earlier about this, but in the PSDS that George put in, he said something about Britta's paid that it was a $7,000 rhodium amount of money that was not being used for rhodium, I believe it was, that will be poured towards her salary. Am I right on that? Is from what I saw earlier in the PSDS report, Corey?
Corey?
Mr. Chair, this is George.
Or George?
Yeah, that's true for the remainder, starting in October of this year. We didn't have her budgeted to start, so we're using some of the rhodium dollars that were set aside last year to pay her salary for October, November, and December.
Okay, so would I be correct in understanding that then the full salary that starts from October 1st of 20 going forward? That's a 1 year starting then.
The three months will be paid out of the rhodium dollars. The rest will be part of our regular budget moving forward. So yeah, I guess you could say that.
Okay, that's what I wanted to understand. Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Mayor. Any other questions? Okay. If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the budget as submitted.
I'll move the budget.
Okay, is that Chief Wells?
Wise.
Chief Wise, sorry, I'm back in history, yeah. Chief Wise, my apologies. Is there a second?
No worries.
I'll make a second. Mayor Feldman?
Mayor Feldman, good. All right, discussion. Any discussion on it? Well, again, we've tried to do this. This is the third meeting we've broached this, and I think it's a very good budget, very well thought out. I'm pleased that we're going to take some of our reserves down to be able to balance that out. And I know, Corey, my understanding is that it's a recommended standard to have about a 20% reserve. Is that correct? Under general accounting principles?
Yeah, Tony, that is the, well, it's recommended to have some reserve when you have, this isn't a full government, but for a small operation like this, it's recommended to have some kind of reserves. And this is what we as a board decided when we discussed it about a year ago. So it was a good level. Okay. So to kind of hit that, it's good to have some reserve. 20% is where we landed. If you wanted to drop it more, it could put you at risk if things come up. That's the only concern.
Okay. Very good. Any other?
Mr. Chair,
I'm
this
sorry.
is George.
Go ahead, George.
We kind of set that number based on what it would cost to replace half the system. So we had $700,000 for our system replacement costs. That's kind of the number that I had asked for as a reserve, half of what it would cost to replace the system.
Okay, good. It's good to know. Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay. Hearing none, at this time submitted motion number 3 for voting by the group. Okay, appears everybody is done. Got to wait a few more seconds here. Okay, my results. Time is closed. Thank you. Motion does pass. Thank you, everyone, for your thoughts and your input. Greatly appreciated. All right. Let's go to item number 5 then, committee reports. Chief Wise, the Governance Committee.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. The Governance Committee met July 8th. And actually, it's just, I guess I would like to just point out or highlight a couple of different items. First item would be a small financial change to the financial status report, which shows that the final payment was made in the amount of $27,500 for the FDM or Fire Department Management software. So that piece of the project is complete. The next payments, again, highlighting the status, would be we have a final system acceptance with Central Square, which has not taken place yet. But I just would highlight that we have the $96,000 credit for the other aspects of the system that they were not able to provide, and they credit it back to us. So that hopefully we can close out the project one of these days here, and hopefully by the end of the year, because it would just be nice to be done with that aspect of it. The other issue that I wanted to highlight is that there was discussion regarding replacing Chief Harlan Lundstrom as a representative of the Fire Protection Council on the LOGIS board. And as just to remind the members of the Joint Law Enforcement Council, is the Joint Law Enforcement Council has representation on the LOGIS board of directors, which is important. It's that body that makes decisions on the direction of LOGIS and sets the budget for LOGIS, which is the software consortium, the nonprofit software consortium of cities that helps us tremendously, both with our PSDS project and other cities use it for different aspects. I have been acting, or I am the member of the board and I represent JLEC for those board meetings, but we're looking to add an alternate, which had been Chief Harlan Lundstrom, as a fire representative. And since Chief Lundstrom wanted a replacement, the Fire Protection Council recommended another name as the alternate, and that name is Assistant Fire Chief O'Brien, I believe. I'm missing his first name. I'm sorry. But anyway, I believe he's with Columbia Heights. But so anyway, there's a recommendation then to the Joint Law Enforcement Council to to approve Mr. O'Brien being added as an alternate for the Logis board. So I guess that needs to take the form of a motion, I would guess.
Okay, Chief Wise, we discussed this at the last meeting. Isn't the Fire Protection Council going to meet tomorrow? Is that correct?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, they are going to meet tomorrow. Oh, yeah, actually, wait a minute. Of course, now it says Dan O'Brien, I'm sorry. I guess our conversation was that we wanted, just to refresh my memory, Mr. Chair, it was we were waiting for the Fire Protection Council to formally vote on that, or we were taking that as a recommendation to bring to JLEC?
Yeah, I believe it was they were going to make a recommendation to JLEC. We wanted to defer to them to at least give us a name and a recommendation. Now, have they done that, Chief Wise or Commissioner Schulte? Are you aware of that at all? Commissioner Schulte?
I was told that the joint or the Fire Protection Council meeting for tomorrow has been canceled. So it's my supposition that they forwarded that name after internal discussions, but I'm not 100% certain. But I was told that their meeting tomorrow was canceled.
All right. Chief Wise.
Mr. Chair, then I guess I'll continue then. It's not essential that an alternate be named anytime soon. The next board meeting for Logis is coming up here within the next couple of weeks, and I do plan to attend. Actually, I'm sorry, it's tomorrow. The next Logis Board of Directors meeting is tomorrow at 10:30. I will be attending that, and so it's a quarterly board meeting, so it'll be somewhere along the way, if an alternate could be named, that would be great. I think it's an important step to take, and it's an important message to send to the Fire Protection Council that the Joint Law Enforcement Council values their input.
I guess Chief Wise and then Commissioner Schulte, are you comfortable enough with that there at least has been an informal recommendation from Fire Protection Council that we would move forward with this? Is that, I see nodding a yes by Commissioner Schulte. Chief Wise,
Yes.
Do you feel that way too?
Well, yeah, Mr. Chair, I guess I would just add it's the kind of position that requires some technical knowledge. And if that name has already been brought forward or has been selected, I'm sure there was ample discussion about who's able to thoughtfully vote on matters related to Logis, and I would be very comfortable with naming this person as an alternate.
All right.
Mr. Chair, this is George.
Yes.
I worked with Chief Piper and Chief Thompson from Columbia Heights. Chief Thompson actually made the recommendation. Chief Piper seconded the recommendation. So I would agree completely with Chief Wise. It was Assistant Chief Dan O'Brien. He was a major player on the FDM implementation and a lot of the SDS implementation prior to. So he would be an excellent candidate for that position.
Okay. It is our call. We gave the Fire Protection Council an opportunity to weigh in, and you feel that they've done so at least on an informal basis. Then, Chief Wise, you are comfortable making that motion to appoint Dan O'Brien from Columbia Heights Fire Department as the alternate JLEC representative to Logis?
Yes, I'm comfortable.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
Second, Workey.
Chief Workey. Any other discussion about that? Okay, hearing none. Dave, you can pull up number 4, please, and we will then vote on that motion. There's no title to it, but unless people want me to repeat the motion, again, it's to appoint Dan O'Brien from Columbia Heights Fire Department as the JLEC alternate to the Logis board. That is the motion. If you could vote. All right. I think it's there. Close the poll. Thank you very much. The motion does pass. And Chief Wise, will you be notifying then, Mr. Bryan, or how should we do that?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I will notify the Fire Protection Council that we have approved that, and through Chief Piper or one other avenue, but I'll make sure that that message makes its way to them, absent they're having a meeting tomorrow. That I'll also let the Logis or people at Logis know so that he receives an invitation to attend
Thank you.
as soon as possible.
Thank you,
Mr.
Chief.
Chair, can I add?
Sure.
So the Logis Board requires a letter from the JLEC, the chair of the JLEC. It also requires minutes, approved minutes from this board as to appoint Assistant Chief Dan O'Brien as the alternate.
Thank you, George. That was going to be my question. Very good. I'll get such a letter drafted once the minutes are done. Chief Wise, I'll connect with you to find out to whom that must be addressed.
All right, sounds good, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Doreen, please note that in the minutes, if you would. Thank you. All right. Anything else from governance, Chief Wise?
Yeah, just one other topic is we also discussed the Pulse Point app. And the coronavirus put the launch of Pulse Point app, or at least the marketing and the launch of the Pulse Point app on hold. We still, I think as a group, the Joint Law Enforcement Council, I think we still want to be in the media for the positive message that Pulse Point sends. There were issues that were brought up, some minor technical issues regarding the system for tracking the location of AEDs. There was there's a lack of clarity, I guess, about addresses that have more than one AED. For instance, a high school that might have 4 or 5 of them, and that there was a technical issue to be sorted on that. But once it makes sense, I guess that we'll circle back and do a press release or some variety of press conference or whatever we can pull off with masking and social distancing and so on, to let people know that this is something that's being done in Anoka County and that it's a big deal for those who might have a cardiac incident in Anoka County.
Okay, Chief. Certainly we can do a little planning on how we are going to roll that out, I think, later. We certainly have a county public information office that would be, I'm sure, quite helpful in putting that message out too.
That's correct, Mr. Chair. And yeah, everything is up and running. It's just more that the advertising piece of what we're doing, because we had planned a big splash. It was in March. We were going to have police and fire representatives out in a setting. And it's just that coronavirus started dominating health news, and we thought we would just get lost in the shuffle, and we then backed out of doing it then. But it's just letting the members of the JLEC know is that that's still on the radar, and that's something that we still want to put forward. It's just that we want to put it forward at some point when we actually can get noticed in the media, which is easier said than done. So unless there are questions coming to me from any member of the JLEC, I think we can probably defer to George for the PSDS manager's report, which he has authored and was sent to the governance committee, and the notes were gone through in the governance committee, but that same document has also been provided to the JLEC for review. So I don't know if George wants to highlight something from that.
All right, thank you, Chief Wise. First of all, any questions for Chief Wise on his portion of the report? Hearing none, why don't we go to PSDS Manager's Report. George Jensen, in Attachment D to your materials. George, if you would, please.
I would just highlight, number one, the contracts. Catherine, Tim, and I will work, now that the budget has been approved, we'll work on the contracts for the city of Coon Rapids, adjusting that so Britta becomes a full-time member of the Public Safety Data System Management Team. And then we're also going to add the contract dollars for Code 4 group to provide additional dollars to help manage the browser, the Anoka County browser that we have going. Inside the PSDS report, you'll see Britta's hard work. That report was updated on Monday to show that we did upgrade to version 20.1.3, which is a new versioning system for Central Square. But that upgrade came through a lot of hard work. Britta coordinating with all the agencies out there, and you see a list of all the agencies that were involved and the people that were involved. And you see that once again, Anoka County and the Public Safety Data System is leading, helping Central Square develop that software to the best it can be. And we've gotten a lot of positive feedback about that upgrade. I have heard some, and I'll be completely honest, I have heard some mumblings also, but for the most part, it's been very positive. So great work for Britta on that. And she's already started work on the next project with Central Square. It'll be another, what they call new user experience, which will add new forms to the web browser. And they're supposed to be, and they have proven to be a very successful update to the system. I want to also point out Jason's hard work with Central Square. Once again, Anoka County and the Public Safety Data System management team is leading the edge there on FDM. We're pushing to get the web up on agencies. It's a very difficult process to switch over from a web-based, a desktop-based program to a web program. And Central Square and FDM have found a lot of issues, especially with agencies like ours, where there are multiple fire departments under one database. And Jason's taken the lead on that with Central Square to try to figure that out. He's working hard with them almost every day on that. And then his reporting, all the agencies, fire agencies that are involved with FDM, Jason's going over the top, providing output, the reports that they need to be successful in reporting to their cities. So both Britta and Jason are doing outstanding work for the Public Safety Data System. The browser database project is just overcame a major hurdle. Been trying to get we're trying to get FBR data instead of the classic RMS, that Windows-based program. Instead of using the Windows-based program database, we want to use that FBR data. It's much more accurate. It's less reliant on interface or transition of data. And that project we overcame some major hurdles in the timing on how quickly we can get the browser updated. And so I'm in the final stages with the developer on that. And I'm hoping here within the next month and a half that we'll have that out for agencies to start using. Pretty excited about that. It opens up a lot of windows for us and what we can do with that browser moving forward. What's not covered in the PSDS update is a new project that we're just started with Central Square, and that's the update or the Minnesota Statute Service is law enforcement only. It keeps us in sync with the statute service at the state level, and it's kind of the last piece that holds us to using that classic RMS system. Once we get this in place, we will no longer need to have two RMS systems, if you will. We'll be down to just that FBR database, where is exactly where we want to be. So we just started. We just got the quote for that last night. It's $15,000 quote. It's in my realm. I can approve that with some guidance from Chief Wise, according to the rules that have been provided. So we'll move forward with that project starting here fairly quickly. We're waiting on some timing and some other rules for that one. And then one of the holdbacks, we talked about earlier that this project's still an ongoing project. It's over 5 years old. We're still in the implementation project. And that has a lot to do with Central Square, or that, TriTech and Central Square, all the different names we've been under. Their inability to finish this project because they are still developing some of the stuff they promised us in our contracts. One of those things is that common identity or a common credential management. So you have one set of credentials, get you into all the different aspects of all the different programs that Central Square provides us. So we've finally got word over the last month or two that they can move forward in installing common identity management, or what we call SIM, into our system. It'll only work with FBR to begin with. As CAD and mobile and FDM come on, that technology is built for CAD, mobile, and FDM. Those systems will slowly be added to it, but it's a major hurdle for us. We've been fighting for this for a long time, and they have not been very active in allowing us to move forward with that project. So it's good news that we're actually going to do this. That sets us up for our very last step, which is we need this in place so we can get NCIC queries inside of FBR. So this is a good thing. It's one more step towards that final project, which to get that NCIC queries working, and then we can close this project out. I'm sorry to say I don't think this will all happen by the end of the year. Sorry about that, Chief Weiss, but I'm just being realistic. So as always, reporting is a big part of what we do. And, you know, I had a meeting today with somebody out of Coon Rapids, and they're very surprised at what we've already accomplished. And as far as reporting, and so I just encourage any chief out there that has a need, just reach out to Britta or myself, or Jason Nyhart too, if you're on fireside, and we can get you the data you need. If we're collecting it, we can work with you on reporting on it. So that's all I have for you today. Thanks so much.
Thank you, George. Any questions of George? Anyone? I know there's,
Tony, Mayor Feldman.
go ahead.
I just want to point out on something on page 7 of the report. There's a number here that says on 10, the budget item. I talked to Corey about this earlier. I just want to explain this to the JLEC board. It says here, April 2020, JLEC also approved an addition $38,000 to the 21 budget, bringing the total to $1,630,100. If you look at the budget itself back on page 5 of the agenda, it's actually $1,628,100. As I was explained by Corey, the amount of money going towards Britta was $30,000, but there was a decrease in some software, and her $28,000, the increase to 30 was some pay raise, as I was explaining to. So that's why the difference is $2,000 less from the software reduction in costs, even though her amount went from 28 to 30,000. George, does that make sense to you, as Corey explained to me?
Thank you, Mary. Yes. That would probably account for the $2,000. George, I'm assuming you and Corey both agree with that, correct? Okay.
I guess I'd have to look into it. I don't quite understand everything that's come together. It just got thrown at me, so I haven't had a chance to look at it.
Well, George, if you look at on your PSDS report on page 7, like I said, it shows that item 10, the budget, you have a total of $1,630,100, but the actual budget amount is $1,628,100. $2,000 difference is slower because of some cost and software reduction costs. That's good. And I just wanted to point out, just for the board's sake, where Britta's amount was $28,000 plus, there was a $38,000 difference between 10 to code 4 and 28 to her, but she went from $82,000 to $112. It's just the $2,000 more was from what Corey's explained to me, was from an increase in salary pay. Not a big deal. I just wanted to point it out to the council, to the board. I'm all for Britta going full time, and I supported that the last meeting, and I support it now.
Yeah, and Mayor Feldman, and I think you're right, the budget numbers actually would control that, what was passed. I think George was very close on estimating, so it was an approximate amount, but you're right, the budget amount does control.
Right, I would agree with that, Tony. I just wanted, this more for an FYI than anything with the board.
Yep, no, that's fine. George, no big deal. I think you got awfully close on your estimate there. And when the actual budget came in, it was just $2,000 less than what you had indicated, George. So it's not a big deal at all. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any other comments for questions for George on attachment D? Hearing none, thank you. Let's move on to item 5B, the Central Communications Committee. And I know the sheriff is not here. He is the chair, but in his place, my understanding is Commissioner Schulte will be giving a report. Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, the Central Communications Committee met last week. One of the first items of business was to change the name of our committee to the Emergency Communications Committee, as the county has changed the name of that department within the county. It's no longer Central Com, it's now Emergency Com, and so our committee's name will change. Secondly, we discussed a little bit about assignment of duties as it related to the CAD system. George is doing yeoman's work managing the entire public safety data system, but we were seeing some crossover into the county's functions within CAD, and so we wanted to clarify what was Val Sprincenatic's job as it relates to public safety data system and the CAD system, and what was George's and how much is backroom work and what's done by county employees as opposed to public safety data system employees. So Val had put together a list, and we had a meeting with Chief Wise, Chief Workey, myself, and the chair of JLEC, Tony, and talked over all this along with Val and then Dee Goodman as well. And we worked through that process, came up with a list, circulated the list amongst those involved. And we're going to move forward with that list. And basically, it really just spells out more clearly who's in charge of what. It doesn't downplay the fact that we all need to be really good partners and work together. The county is roughly 60% of this whole project funding-wise, and felt that we needed to be able to have enough input when it came to what we were paying for and controlling. But the partnerships are important. We know that to implement updates and keep interfaces working, we need George and the public safety data system to work closely with county employees and IT. And so that was essentially what that item was in our central comm or emergency comm committee. I think that really wraps it up. That's all I have, Tony.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Commissioner Schulte? Anyone about that? All right, thank you, Commissioner, for your report. Let's move to item 5C, and that will be the CAD update by Val Sfrincenetic. Val, if you would, attachment F to your materials, by the way.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I attached most of my items in the attachment just for you to read at your leisure. Just to give you a couple little updates, our radio system coordinator position closes today. As of this morning, we had 5 applicants. We have the panel put together for August 4th, which includes the radio system managers from Washington County and Ramsey County to assist us with that. And as I outlined, we've had a really, really great working relationship in the last 3 weeks with Hennepin County and Washington County, and filling in some of the gaps that we have and really helping out our technicians. And they've been great. They've been available for all the questions that we have and everything that's come up. So everything on the user end is seamless. No, there has not been any issues, and we're just hoping to continue until we get somebody in that position. And then the other thing on there I outlined was the number of calls that we took following the death of George Floyd, and that's just information for you. And that's about all I have.
All right, thank you. Questions for Val? Anyone? Okay, hearing none, thank you. We'll move item number 6, but I don't think we have anybody from fire protection, do we? Here? I don't think that we do. I mean, Chief Thompson couldn't make it, so we'll move on to number 7, user groups, Chief Law Enforcement. Chief Peterson.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. We haven't met in an official meeting since May, and we don't intend to meet until September again. However, we recently has stopped daily meetings with the CLEOs. Those meetings consisted of review of any COVID-related actions that were coming down, and as well the civil unrest issues. Those were good meetings, very productive with information being shared back and forth. But recently we've stopped them, or at least are prepared to have a meeting if needed. But at this point, we're not having any meetings until September.
All right. Thank you, Chief. Any questions about that? Just because we're not meeting doesn't mean we don't communicate and we're not active, correct, Chief?
Yeah, absolutely. We're for those elected officials and people who don't know, the CLEOs in Anoka County have good communication back and forth.
All right. Thank you, Chief. Let's move on. Criminal investigations, Chief Deputy Helwig.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For CID, crime scene unit is now up at full strength. We just hired Nick Smith from St. Cloud Police Department. Nick has over 20 years of crime scene processing experience up in St. Cloud, so he's going to be a great add for the crime scene. Otherwise, in CID, obviously a lot of time being spent right now on this case involving the former Anoka Hennepin middle school teacher. We've got 7 confirmed victims for this guy. He's a real predator. Complaint was issued. He had a bail hearing yesterday, was granted bail, but some other steps were taken today. And he's going to remain in custody out in Boston. And we've got folks going out on Thursday, flying out to pick him up and bring him back here so he can start answering for some of this. And that's it for CID.
All right, thank you, Chief Deputy. Questions of the Chief Deputy? Hearing none, let's move on to Education, Training, and Firearms. Any report, Chief Deputy?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, we've got the open range coming up here at the in August at the range on the 18th and 20th of August. We also have several other courses coming in, starting to start up here again in August. First Aid Essentials on the 17th and 31st. And then a couple handgun courses at the range, close quarter pistol skills, 24th and 25th, and the following 2 days on the 26th and 27th are a tactical pistol course, and then a crime scene metal detector operations course on August 17th and 18th. Any questions on that, you can hit up training coordinator Kelly Wellman or reach out to Lieutenant Knotts here, and that concludes my report.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin. Move on then. Terry, I don't think you joined us. Terry Stoltzman from Emergency Management. I don't think he's on. Let's go to Auto Theft Task Force. Chief Wise.
Thank you. Wait a minute. Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm on, correct?
Yes, you are, Chief. Go ahead.
All right, because it's a little hard to read the icon. All right. Yeah, I just, it's important, I guess, to talk about the Auto Theft Task Force because unfortunately, the spring and into the summer, the trend that the task force itself is chasing is carjacking, which is especially frightening because that's stealing cars using force, and it leads to bad outcomes in many different ways. And so I just talked with our lead investigator about it, and he was saying that there were a couple of actually there was one crash from a fleeing carjacker that put 2 of the carjackers in the hospital, and this was apparently like a month ago or so, and that as a result, carjackings are statistically down since that time. So while it's a troubling trend, carjacking, it's apparently a small group of people that are involved in that. 2 individuals wind up being involved in a crash, and suddenly the stats reveal less activity. But that said, it's young people, generally teenagers or juveniles, and it's a disturbing trend. But anyway, that's been the focus of the Auto Theft Task Force. And of course, there's still ongoing investigative work relating to larger groups that steal cars as organized activity, and those data points still show that cars are still being stolen throughout Anoka County. So, and then just a refresher to all the members of the JLEC is that every city in Anoka County participates in the Auto Theft Task Force, and it's good work in the sense that it gets those investigations off of the individual budgets for each law enforcement agency and lets it be on the budget as provided by the Minnesota Department of Commerce through revenue generated from auto insurance. So that's my report.
Thank you, Chief. And I think we're seeing a general trend, unfortunately, upward in car thefts. I know certain cities have had that. Has Coon Rapids had that? Has that been experienced throughout the county?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, everywhere in Anoka County, I think, is experiencing an uptick. But yes, it happened in a carjacking happened in Coon Rapids. There was a carjacking in Columbia Heights, and these are all recent incidents. So yeah, it's a troubling trend. The crime stats, violent crime stats going up in Minneapolis have a spillover effect, no question.
No doubt about it. And I reminded elected officials that, for insurance purposes, we've discussed this before, but I'll remind you, those that set auto insurance rates look at auto theft numbers in cities. So when these things go up, it winds up costing all of us. So just as a reminder, it's a very important work that this task force is doing for everyone, not only to deter crime or to prevent it, but also it does have an impact, an economic impact throughout the citizens of each city in the county. Thank you, Chief, for that. All right, let's move to item number 8, which is the elected officials input. I think I'll just go down the list here of the roll, and Pat Antonin from Circle Pine City Administrator. Anything you want to weigh in, sir?
Yes, Mr. Chair, if I may. We have a lot of changes in our area. The first change is Chief Jim Cohen is retiring as of July 31st. So we wanted to thank him for his over 10 years serving as police chief of the Centennial Lakes Police Department. And with that, I'll apologize to Fridley Chief Werke for stealing his top lieutenant, Jim Mork, who starts next Monday as our new chief of police for Centennial Lakes Police Department.
Well, certainly.
And the other thing I got for you real quickly is with our Centennial Fire District, Chief Harlan Lundstrom has also retired as of the end of June, and we have brought our former chief and former Andover chief, Jerry Strike, out of retirement to serve as our interim chief for the time being, as we're doing an operations study to determine what our department will look like in the near future.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Thank you, Pat. Appreciate that update. Just don't speed through Fridley, right, Chief Werke?
That's correct, Tony. Apology is not accepted. Thank you.
So noted for the record. All right, thank you. Let's move on. Commissioner Brastad. We're doing this by alphabetical order. Commissioner Brastad, any thoughts?
Yep, nope, I have nothing today. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Tony Cavane, please.
Nothing to report. Just want to express gratitude to everyone as they continue to work through some difficult times with COVID, civil unrest, and calls for reform in our law enforcement. Again, just want to say thank you and offer our continued support.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Mayor Dan Deno, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Like I had mentioned before, that we had our fire chief step down, and we are trying to train in our new fire chief, or our interim fire chief. We've also had our city clerk step down, so we are trying to train in the new city clerk as well. So we have a lot of things going on in our lead people. As most of you know, we had a lot of the civil unrest from Minneapolis move up into the city of Oak Grove, specifically at the Lake George Park. So I just wanted to pass on our appreciation for everybody that got involved with helping us quell that riotous situation up there. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Feldman. Steve?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I want to thank the police and fire department chiefs and staff once again for your frontline service through the pandemic. Done an excellent job. It's a hard job, and how much longer it's going to go, I don't know, but I surely appreciate your patience and determination. So thank you once again. Also want to thank a good job to Corey Camp on the budget. I've looked at overhead discussions with him, and I very much like the use of the reserves in our budget. I think that's a really good way to keep the dues in kind of a realm of reality cost-wise. Yeah, we've got the reserves there, and I think I have a reserve of 20% or more. I think it's a great idea. I also want to say, as I stated before, that I like the move of bringing Britta to full-time to the JLEC. I think that's really a good idea in PSDS. I think that's a really good move, and will pay back in dividends. Just in general, I like being on JLEC. I've liked it for the 4 years I've been on it. I just like how it runs structural-wise and budget-wise. Good job to everybody on the board, and chair yourself, too. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate those comments. Let's move on. Councilmember Jeff Menth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to thank all of the law enforcement personnel in Anoka County for doing their jobs and keeping us safe during.
Okay. Yep.
So I'm pleased with him. I'll be following that with added interest. But thank you, everybody, for keeping Anoka County under control.
Thank you. Appreciate those comments. Dave Oswald, please.
I'd like once again to thank all the public safety staff for keeping us being flexible and adaptive throughout this entire all the circumstances that are going on here. And as Director Workey has stated, we're very sorry to see Lieutenant Mort go, and we do not accept an apology, but Centennial Lakes is getting a solid police chief. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Ryan, anything you wish to add? Tom?
Am I on there?
Yep, you're on. We can hear you. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, and I just want to say I'm watching TV here, and the governor has just mandated masks in the public and in business, so that starts a new kind of a new world. And oh, by the way, I have to say this: I'm down to 4 months.
Okay. All right. Then well, you will be at the October meeting then, won't you, Mayor? Hopefully.
Oh yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
We will see you then. Thank you. Mayor Schmidt.
All right. I also want to say thanks to the Anoka County Sheriff Stewart for organizing the everything that's happening on during the riots. Did a great job. We had great feedback from our police officers telling us what a great job they were doing. Appreciate the Anoka County Commissioners too weighing in too. And I also am going to be quitting at the end of December too, so I'm counting the days too. And this will be a year to remember. We're also celebrating our 100-year anniversary in Columbia Heights. And on July 21st, 2021. So we've started the kickoff, 365-day kickoff yesterday. Kind of a low key because of the pandemic. And one other question, I don't know if anybody else has had questions about defunding the police. Apparently we have a resident, John Maxton, that has contacted us from the grassrootslaw.org that would like to talk to us about defunding the police. Probably wouldn't have, we are going to actually meet with him because he does say he does live here, but I don't know if anybody else has had any issues with that too. Be interesting to hear back if you had. All right, thank you.
Right, thank you, Mayor Schmidt. Yeah, contact, but I haven't heard anything, and I don't think there's a groundswell in Anoka County for that position, but we will see. Commissioner Schulte.
I have nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Julie Trude, please.
Hi, thank you. I guess just a little update on our community. We got our CARES money from the state, and it was over $2 million because it's based on population, and we adopted a program last evening to try and funnel most of that to our small businesses in a grant program. Of course, we'll hold some funds back for our COVID-related expenses. We've been fortunate to not have incidents shutting down city services, but like many of you, anybody who's been exposed, it's kind of an anxious time as they isolate and wait for results. And so I really do appreciate also the people who are showing up at work and have public contact every day, because we really rely and depend on you very much. I guess the incidents with young adults and young teens at parks has declined, according to Commander Lensmeyer, who reported also to us last night. It seems like there's plenty of activity keeping our fire department and police services very busy, though, with so many people at home. I am running for office again and hope to continue on the council. I appreciate having this role to understand better what is happening in our law enforcement community, and it's a very important service to our residents. We have not had anybody ask us about defunding. In fact, instead I have people stop me when they see me at the grocery store and when they walk by my house and I'm gardening, and they want to hear that we are supporting our law enforcement and we're not making any changes. So I think the suburbs, we're fortunate that we have that kind of a constituent and we don't have the stresses, but I think I also appreciate our law enforcement having a different approach to policing. And I've talked to Sheriff Stewart a number of times about his hiring practices and training practices, and we're very fortunate for his leadership. And I appreciate the leadership of the other chiefs around us, because I know you do work together and communicate with each other to keep us out of the news, which is what we really want. So thank you, everyone, for your roles in supporting safe communities for our constituents. That's all.
All right, thank you, Mayor Trude. Councilman Wells.
Nothing, thank you.
All right, Councilmember Brian West from Anoka. Brian, I think you're on the telephone. Can we unmute Brian? Brian West. Okay. Can you hear us? Councilman West. Apparently we don't have you on the screen. We may have lost you. Okay, fine. Thank you. If we see him come back on, we may ask for comments later. Let's go on to item number 9, old business. Anyone have old business they wish to bring up to this board? Okay, hearing none. New business. What I did do is I added 10A, reimbursement for civil unrest costs. This is something I know the police chiefs is near and dear to their heart, and I thought elected officials might want to have some sort of idea of what we are talking about here. So if I can ask any of the chiefs if they wish to at least explain this situation a little bit to the rest of the board, especially the elected officials. Anyone want to take it? Yeah, a lot of volunteers. Essentially what happens is there's a statute that talks about when a requesting agency is requesting law enforcement services from a sending agency. The requesting agency is supposed to be paying for the costs of that. Now, it's a difference for when the state makes the request or when a local agency makes the request. And in this case, the state made the request by the governor authorizing State Patrol to take command of law enforcement on, I believe it was the Friday during the riots. And we in Anoka County sent several officers down there. I don't know what the exact count is. Deputy Chief Helwig, do you have any idea? You were keeping track of the entire amount?
Yes, a lot.
Okay, we'll use that for a number, a lot. And they were down there at least for 3 days, I believe. And I think many of our local agencies also sent officers down there. And of course, now that the unrest has quieted down, there is a bill to be submitted. And that's part of the discussion I wanted for elected officials, is that, I don't know, has any chief received any reimbursement for anything that's been submitted? Can I ask? Chief Wise, I think you were probably one of the ones that kind of took the lead on this.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. No, we have not received even an official response yet.
And you submitted it to the city of Minneapolis or to the Department of Public Safety?
We sent it to the city of Minneapolis.
Okay. And there is, I believe, is it a 60-day or 90-day window? I forget which it is, in which at the end of the, or once you incur the bills, that those are to be submitted. So, and not a word back from anybody. Chief Werke, have you heard anything either?
No, Mr. President, I have not.
Okay.
I would just say my notes from our meeting last week were that Anoka County spent over $500,000, and that's the amount they submitted to Minneapolis.
For all the law enforcement agencies within Anoka County, yeah. And I'm sure they're trying to figure out what they're going to do down there.
Mr. Chair, Chief Deputy, that was, the 500,000 was just at the sheriff's office, so I would guess countywide we're a lot higher than that.
I would expect so. I know Blaine had something in the nature of 135,000 in overtime, I believe. That's just one.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Dan Sokolski, we had 137,000, and we sent our letter with our invoice to Commissioner Harrington, the City of Minneapolis, the Director of Homeland Security, and the State Patrol, and we have not had any responses from anybody as of yet.
Not even acknowledgement of receipt of your letter?
No.
Okay. All righty. I guess I'll keep my editorial comment to myself on that one, but,
If I might, perhaps we seek special legislation, and the legislators are going to be meeting again very soon, probably in a few more weeks, to discuss the bonding bill, and maybe we ask a local senator and a couple of them that represent our larger area to carry a bill for reimbursement. Why not?
I agree, Mayor Trude. I think the cities should not have to bear the cost of the unrest that occurred down in Minneapolis. But that's just my opinion, but I think everyone stood up in Anoka County in the law enforcement arena and submitted the help when they needed it, and did so in a most professional and exemplary manner. It would seem patently unfair if those costs to be able to provide that support would not be reimbursed. So I think that's an argument to one of our, Commissioner Schulte, you've got your hand up. I believe you may have some.
Yeah, I would just comment that I'm not in favor of going to the legislature and getting paid back, because that's using the entire state to pay back a total failure of leadership in one community. I'm in favor of passing legislation to make sure Minneapolis, the city of Minneapolis, taxes its citizens to pay back anybody that went in to help. This should not be people from Roseau or Columbia Heights or anywhere that should be paying this bill. This should be Minneapolis residents paying this bill.
Okay, thank you. All right. Any other comments about that topic? I just wanted, because the chiefs, obviously, they're well aware of this and they incurred these costs as part of their budget. I just want elected officials to be aware that this was an imposition on their budget in time and material, and in obviously danger to some of those that had to go down and help out. But I wanted this board to be aware of it, that is an ongoing issue, and it's a financial issue that I'm sure the chiefs and your individual cities will be pursuing. Any other comments about that?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just a quick comment to follow up, that the CARES dollars that we received from the federal government, I believe, can be used to reimburse those costs if the city of Minneapolis doesn't pay. I'm not positive on the time frame of when you could activate those dollars, but those CARES dollars that did come in from the federal government can be used to reimburse police costs.
All right. Chiefs, take note of that, please, and other elected officials. All right, any other comments on that?
This is Donna Schmidt. I agree with Commissioner Schulte that we go to Minneapolis. Don't go to the whole state. Thank you.
Okay.
Tony, Mayor Feldman?
Yes.
I would also agree with the commissioner too on that. The city of Minneapolis should pay for that, not the state.
All right. Thank you. All right. See, City of Ramsey from Chief Caters, that they also submitted a bill and have not heard from it. I just hope it gets ironed out, just out of a sense of fairness. Thank you. All right. Anything more on that topic? If not, we've already dealt with 10B, which was the alternate delegate. We've taken care of that. And our next meeting is set for October 28th. And unless things change radically, I expect that's going to be virtual again. So please put it on their calendar. We'll get the notice out. If for some reason a miracle happens and we're back to business as normal, then it's slated to be at the Blaine Police Department. But I don't think any of us are holding our breath for that. So let's plan on it to be a virtual meeting. Okay. Any other business come before the board? Okay. Hearing none, I will declare us adjourned. Thank you for attending. I appreciate it, and I appreciate all your comments. Take care.